If a 19-year-old girl can disappear just 200 yards from her own home in a safe Texas suburb, then maybe no neighborhood is ever truly safe. Rachel Cooke went for a morning run in her hometown of Georgetown, Texas. She was almost home, but she never made it back. What happened on that January morning in 2002 has haunted her parents, shaken her community, and left behind questions that still have no answers. Stay with me, because by the end of this video, I'll show you a shocking piece of this case, a message that claimed to expose the truth, but instead revealed a devastating lie. This is more than a missing person story. It's about the illusion of safety and how quickly it can shatter. Welcome to Detective Daniel Files. If you're new here, kindly subscribe, tell me your name and where you're watching from. Together we shine a light on the darkest mysteries. Rachel Cooke wasn't a troubled runaway. She wasn't living a double life. She was 19 years old, smart, athletic, and home on winter break. She had just finished her first semester at Mesa College in San Diego, but she still carried that small-town innocence of Georgetown, Texas. Friends said she was fearless. Family said she was full of promise. But here's the controversial question. Did her independence make her a target? She came home to spend time with her parents, to relax, to laugh, to just be a daughter again. But sometimes even home isn't safe. And this is where people will always argue. Was Rachel simply in the wrong place at the wrong time, or was she being watched long before that run? The morning of January 10th, 2002 should have been forgettable, the kind of day that blends into all the others. A daughter home from college, a family making breakfast, the quiet hum of a safe neighborhood. Rachel slipped on her yellow shorts with green stripes, a gray sports top, her Asics running shoes, headphones on, music in her ears, just a quick run before the day began. She left at 9:30 a.m., waving to her parents, promising to be back soon. This was her routine, her comfort, the familiar 4-mile loop around the neighborhood she had known since childhood. Neighbors saw her. She smiled. She was so close to home, just 200 yards away. 2 football fields, a minute's jog. That's all that separated her from safety and from vanishing. And here's the heartbreak. She wasn't running through the shadows of a dangerous city. She was running through her parents' street, in the daylight, where nothing bad was supposed to happen. But Rachel never made it back. When Rachel didn't come back on time, her mom glanced at the clock. 5 minutes late, then 10. At first she told herself it was nothing, but deep down, she knew something was wrong. She called Rachel's phone. No answer. She opened the door, scanning the street, expecting to see her daughter jogging toward home. But the street was empty. That's when panic turned into action. Police were called. Helicopters went up. Search dogs brought in. Neighbors left their houses to walk the streets. Still nothing. Not a shoe. Not a scrap of clothing. Not a sound. And here's the part that chills you. Rachel was less than 200 yards from her house. 200 yards. If she screamed, would anyone have heard it? The neighborhood froze. People stood on their porches, shaking their heads, whispering the same words. This doesn't happen here. But the truth, it just had, and the nightmare was only beginning. As deputies spread out, whispers began. Neighbors said they saw something strange that morning. Cars that didn't belong on Rachel's street. One recalled a white Pontiac Trans Am. Another, a Camaro parked near the route Rachel always ran. Same cars, same time, just sitting there. And then came the detail no one can forget. A man, muscular, dark hair, watching. No one recognized him. No one knew why he was there. The abduction theory was born. And once you hear the next piece of evidence, you'll realize Rachel's run may have ended the moment she was spotted. When a daughter vanishes, suspicion starts close to home. Detectives sat down with Rachel's family, her friends, even her boyfriend. Everyone was questioned. Did she fight with anyone? Did she have secrets? Was there something in her life no one knew about? The answers came back the same. Rachel wasn't running from anything. She was taken. But as the hours stretched into days, the leads that once seemed promising began to dry up. Every clue hit a dead end. Every tip circled back to nothing. The media swarmed Georgetown. Cameras rolled. Reporters stood on the same street where Rachel had disappeared, and the community's fear became a headline. And then came the most haunting image of all, her parents standing before microphones, begging for their daughter's return, a plea so raw, so desperate, you can still hear the pain in their voices. But what they didn't know then is that the nightmare was only getting darker. When police ran out of clues, they started thinking about something worse. Maybe Rachel was taken by a stranger. Texas has had many dangerous men, killers who watched and waited for victims just like her. Some names came up, men already locked in prison, men known for murder. Could one of them have driven through Georgetown that morning, seen Rachel running, and grabbed her in seconds? The idea scared everyone, because if a stranger could do this in broad daylight, on a quiet street, then maybe no place was really safe. People changed overnight. Runners stopped going out alone. Parents stopped letting kids walk to school. Georgetown didn't feel safe anymore. Fear spread faster than the truth. And here's the question people still fight about. Was Rachel's kidnapper just a stranger passing through? Or was he a serial predator who disappeared back into the shadows, waiting for his next victim? If that's true, he could still be out there. 4 years after Rachel vanished, the case suddenly took a shocking turn. A convicted killer, Michael Keith Moore, came forward and said the words Rachel's family had waited to hear. "I killed her." Moore gave details. He claimed he had picked Rachel up, murdered her, and buried her body in a field outside Georgetown. For investigators desperate for answers, it sounded like the break they needed. Police brought in heavy equipment. They dug through acres of land. They searched with dogs, with shovels, with hope. And for a moment, everyone believed Rachel was finally coming home. But the ground gave them nothing. No body, no clothing, no trace of Rachel. The confession began to crumble, and then Moore admitted it. He lied. His story was false. He had never killed Rachel. He had never buried her. Everything was made up. For her family, it was cruel beyond words. Hope had turned to dust. They had been given the promise of answers, only to be left with the same silence. And the most painful truth of all, Rachel was still missing. Think about what Rachel's family went through, believing for a moment that they had answers, only to be crushed by another lie. It's the kind of nightmare no parent should ever face. And if this case chills you the way it chills me, it's because you know, danger doesn't always come from the shadows. Sometimes it hides in plain sight, right next door. That's why I wrote my ebook, Predator Next Door. It's a guide to help families spot the dangers most people miss before it's too late. If you care about protecting yourself and the people you love, you'll want to read this. The link is in the description below. Don't wait until danger is at your door. After the false confession collapsed, one thing became clear. If Rachel's case was going to stay alive, it wouldn't be because of the system. It would be because of her parents. Janet and Robert Cooke refused to stop. They stood in front of cameras. They knocked on doors. They kept repeating Rachel's name, long after the headlines faded. Her mother's voice still echoes. "There is no closure until my daughter is home." Words heavy with pain but stronger than silence. And they didn't just fight for Rachel. They began standing with other families of the missing, mothers and fathers who knew the same emptiness, the same sleepless nights. Through their grief, the Cookes built something powerful, a reminder that these children don't disappear from memory, not as long as their families keep fighting. By now, people were asking the question no one wanted to face. Why, after all these years, are there still no answers? From the very first hours, gaps in the investigation haunted the case. Witness reports weren't followed up quickly enough. Leads slipped through cracks. And once time was lost, it could never be recovered. But the biggest gap of all, there was no body. Without Rachel's remains, detectives couldn't confirm what had been done to her, where she was taken, or even if she had been moved more than once. Theories multiplied. Some believed she was buried in a shallow grave. Others whispered she might have been hidden in a well, or taken far out of town. And every year that passed made the truth harder to reach. Frustration turned to anger. How could someone vanish in broad daylight, on her own street, and still leave no trace? For the Cookes, it was unbearable. For the community, it was a wound that refused to heal. And for law enforcement, it was a shadow they couldn't shake. 20 years later, one of the most painful truths about Rachel's case is this: there isn't one single story everyone agrees on. There are theories, and each theory refuses to die, because each one could still explain what happened that morning. The first and most obvious theory is the one investigators leaned on from the beginning: stranger abduction. A random predator, driving through Georgetown, sees Rachel running alone. He pulls over, offers her a ride, or maybe doesn't even speak at all. In one violent moment, she's gone. The man no one recognized. This wasn't someone Rachel trusted. This was someone who saw opportunity and acted fast. And that's the part that chills you.
it would explain why she vanished so close to home, because stranger abductions are quick, brutal, and often leave no time for witnesses. If Rachel was taken this way, it means she crossed paths with evil at the exact wrong second. But not everyone buys that theory. Some argue Rachel's disappearance feels too precise, too personal, to be random. Maybe she wasn't taken by a stranger. Maybe she was taken by someone who already knew her. Think about it. Rachel was outgoing, independent, trusting. What if a familiar face pulled up beside her? What if it was someone she had laughed with before, someone she never imagined could hurt her? Would she have stopped? Would she have let her guard down just long enough for danger to strike? This theory lingers because it fits the silence. No screams, no struggle. If she knew the person, maybe she thought she was safe until it was too late. And then there's the darkest possibility of all, that Rachel wasn't the only target, that she fell into the hands of a serial predator. Texas in the early 2000s had its share of monsters. Men who hunted highways, men who collected victims. Some were already in prison by the time Rachel disappeared, others still free. Investigators quietly compared notes, wondering, was Rachel's case part of a larger pattern? The thought terrifies families, because it suggests she may not have been the first, and she may not have been the last. And that's the tragedy. Every theory has holes. Every theory has weight. Stranger abduction, someone she trusted, a serial predator passing through. None have been proven. None have been ruled out. 20 years later, they all still hover in the air like ghosts. And until the truth is found, Rachel's family, and the community that loved her, will always be stuck in the same unbearable question. Which story is real? Behind the theories, the headlines, and the endless investigation, there is the sound that never fades, the voice of Rachel's family. Her mother Janet has said it over and over. There is no closure until my daughter is home. It is not a line for the cameras. It is the truth of a mother who wakes every day with the same nightmare. Her father, Robert, has stood in front of microphones, holding back tears, begging for the public's help. He once said, "We don't care how long it takes, we just want to bring Rachel back." His words, heavy with exhaustion, still carry hope. And then there are Rachel's siblings, brothers and cousins who grew up in the shadow of her disappearance. They didn't just lose a sister, they lost the version of themselves that existed when Rachel was still there. Birthdays, holidays, family milestones, all marked by the empty space where she should have been. Every letter, every interview, every tear-filled statement has kept Rachel's name alive. And that's the most powerful reminder of all. Behind every missing person case is not just a story of crime, but a story of family, fighting against silence. Before Rachel's disappearance, Georgetown felt like the kind of place where doors stayed unlocked, where children rode bikes until dark, where joggers ran without fear. That illusion ended the day Rachel never came home. Almost overnight, everything changed. Parents stopped letting their kids walk to school. Neighbors who once waved from their driveways now double-checked locks and kept blinds closed. Runners who had once filled the sidewalks in the early mornings vanished. Some only went out in groups, others quit altogether. The sound of footsteps on a quiet street was no longer peaceful, it was unsettling. The case carved fear into a community that had once called itself safe. Because if a young woman could disappear just 200 yards from her parents' front door, then safety wasn't guaranteed anywhere. And the reflection that haunts Georgetown to this day is simple, but devastating. If this can happen here, it can happen anywhere. Even after 2 decades, Rachel's case leaves behind questions that echo louder than the answers. Questions that keep her family awake at night, and questions the community still can't shake. Would Rachel have been found if police had acted faster in those first critical hours? Or was she already gone before anyone even realized she was missing? Did witnesses see things they didn't understand at the time? A parked car, a stranger watching? Did crucial details slip away simply because no one thought danger lived on their street? Why has her body never been found, buried, moved, hidden in plain sight? The silence of that missing piece keeps every theory alive. And the most painful question of all, can there ever be justice without her return? Can a family heal when the most important piece of the puzzle, their daughter, is still missing? Cases like Rachel's remind us of something most people don't want to admit. Danger can be closer than we think. Sometimes it's not in the dark alleys, but right on the quiet streets we call safe. That's why I created my ebook, Predator Next Door. It's built to help families protect themselves by spotting red flags early and by recognizing the dangers that often hide in plain sight. If Rachel's story moves you, don't just watch, act. Get your copy from the link in the description and learn how to keep yourself and your loved ones safe before it's too late. Rachel's disappearance didn't just shake a family, it reshaped a community. Out of her tragedy came runner safety campaigns, urging women to never run alone, to carry alarms, to stay alert even in broad daylight. Her parents, Janet and Robert, turned their grief into a mission. They became voices for other families of missing children, reminding the world that one family's fight could inspire many. Rachel's legacy is more than sorrow. It's a call for vigilance, a reminder that awareness saves lives, and a promise that her name and her story will never be forgotten. She was 200 yards from home, but she never made it back. For her family, 2 decades of silence have been louder than words. Rachel's story is a reminder. No community is too safe, no street too quiet, no run too short. Until she is found, her family waits, and so do we. If you know anything, contact the Williamson County Sheriff's Office or the National Center for Missing Persons. Rachel's face deserves answers. Rachel's family deserves the truth.